Hotel IntelTalk and this is IntelTalk. My name is Wimindra. Today our guest is cross-cultural communication expert and polyglot, Mr. Stuart Jay Raj. Is it important for foreign GMs to learn language?
When you're talking about a foreign GM coming into a country, one of the most important things that I've seen with the work that I've done is that they need to understand what's happening at all levels. In many places, if you're in China, Indonesia, Thailand, most of the people won't have English at that level. So you can either learn the language, or if you're not going to learn the language, make sure that you have communication channels coming from each level in the organization. Mostly you might see GMs coming in and they have only one person, maybe their second in charge or their PA, and then everything that they say goes through only that one or two people. And sometimes the message is filtered, and then the message from the bottom is also filtered. So he doesn't get a full picture of what's actually going on the ground. So learning the language is great. If you don't learn it, make sure you've got channels to be able to understand what's going on the ground.
So how relevant is understanding the local culture for hoteliers?
When you're coming in, both as whether you're a hotel manager, management company, or you're building a hotel, culture is very important. In the US, for example, what might be 5-star service or 5-star expectations might be very different. For example, in Asia, many countries in Asia, you go into a bathroom, the first thing you'll check for, does it have a sprayer? Yeah. Because when you go to the bathroom and you do your business, you need water. Now, in many Western countries, they just use toilet paper. So you might have the most beautiful hotel, but people will avoid going to it if they know that when they go into the bathroom there's no sprayer. Another example, breakfast. The normal way to serve, you would have standards, and these standards are set maybe for the West of how you're going to lay out the table, spoons, forks. In Thailand, you might see them, and in these Western hotels, they're beautiful, but you go down, they only have a knife and fork for breakfast. No spoon. Right. What do we eat with in Thailand? You have a spoon in the right hand and a fork. Knives, what does that do? And the fork doesn't enter your mouth. You only use the spoon to eat. Yeah. So people might know that if there's no spoon or fork there, they might get frustrated. They'll go somewhere else because that's not speaking to them culturally wise. So they're just two examples of how culture can be relevant in building your brand, even if it's an existing brand, but building it in a new country or a new market.
So from my very own experience, I have discovered that sometimes learning new languages in your own country doesn't actually help also.
That's true. Sometimes learning the language of the local people can work to your disadvantage. Right. In China, for example, there was a recent experience when I was there and we were having a problem with our tickets at the airline counter when we got there. There was a big bad weather, the planes were getting cancelled, and there was only one flight left to go out and it was almost full. The hotel rang me because they knew of the issue, and they knew I spoke Chinese, but they said, go to the counter now. We've spoken to them, you're not allowed to speak Chinese.
Do it in English.
Do it in English. And while all the Chinese were there, I went there and spoke to them what I needed. And because of that barrier of the language and that barrier now between myself and the people there, right, it was used to my advantage, and we were both put into business class on that last flight out. We got the last 2 seats out. Now, it mightn't have been very fair, but this is a reality. Sometimes language or ignorance of language or a culture can work to the advantage of the foreigner working, but it's only temporary. Right. If you're going to spend any amount of time there, going the route of understanding the culture, understanding the language, I would say is the only route I would want to take.
So does good leadership cuts across cultural boundaries?
Good leadership is something that is innate in people, but some people, yeah, they think it might, they're good leader in the US, and then when they go to China or they go to Thailand or Indonesia, that leadership will carry through. Does good leadership cut across cultural boundaries? Yes and no. somebody who is a good leader knows how to lead people.
Right.
When you're in, say, the US, what a good leader might be is somebody who can separate personal from work life, separate business from personal issues. They can get things done, they can speak their mind, they can make sure they're managing these people correctly. In Asia, say in China, Thailand, anywhere around here, the good leader is somebody who is sensitive to his people's feelings, what they're going through. Has somebody died in the family? Is their children sick? You know, if somebody's died, do that. What's the festival that's happening? So leadership is something that cuts across boundaries, but a good leader will learn how his leadership style or her leadership style will be rendered in the new culture, and then they'll be able to adjust themselves so they can be that same good leader, but with the face of the local culture, so they can plug into that.
Can you expand on that? Like what kind of event or occasion?
Yeah, so well, for example, if you were a leader like this, there was normally somebody that said, you know, that could get things done like this. If you come to Thailand and you try and order and get things done like this, people will shut down and they'll shut you out.
Right.
So you've got to learn
and
to...
you'll probably be known as a dictatorship or something.
Yeah, you'll be a dictator.
Yeah.
So while in Thailand, you also have to be, as well as the dictator, that's called padet, you also need pakun, which is like the father, the merciful father figure, and you need to balance that. If you're too much the father, they'll take advantage of you.
Right.
If you're too much the padetkan, the dictator, they will turn off. So you need to balance that. You need to know maybe the kids' names. You know, when their kid is starting school, or if somebody's sick or somebody's dying. If somebody's passed away, maybe you give them an envelope with money to help with the funeral expenses or with the family. For Chinese New Year, you know, you would give the ang pao and you would celebrate those things. So these kinds of examples are ways that you can learn and adjust and adapt to the new culture.
What are the most important factors for hotel investment, hotel management to consider before setting up in a new market, especially in Asia?
When setting up in Asia, it's just really important to know where you're setting up. Know the people, find out what drives them there. What's important? Is it a culture where you have those concepts of the father figure, the dictator? Or is it a culture that needs to be ordered around? Or is it a culture that you just leave them to their devices and they will be able to go on their own and do the best? You need to know all those things and do that. Also, things like that, just simple things like the sprayer in the bathroom. Right. What do people expect when they go into a restaurant? How do they expect to be greeted, to be served? Understand that even though you might be an international brand, you've got a 5-star brand and a reputation around the world, what your standards are in one place might not be those 5-star standards in another place. So a local taste to your global brand, I think, is an important thing to do. And get somebody that is willing to work with the people on the ground. You might have a fantastic resume of a GM in one country, but are they willing to adjust to this new country? It doesn't mean doesn't mean they can operate in any country. Are they willing to maybe learn the language or at least work like that, or are they going to set themselves way apart from the people? So you have to, I think, consider the personality of the people and also the nationalities of the people you will be employing. It might be not a politically correct topic to talk about in the West, but in some countries they will react differently to different races, different nationalities, and by placing...
It sounds bad, but it happens.
Yeah, it does, and especially in Asia. So if you put a GM that is of a certain ethnic background in a place that's governing people who have an innate resentment to that ethnic background, well, you're going to have issues, and you might be doing it to make a statement or to try and be politically correct as an international organization. But the reality is it could be costing you business, money, and it might be worth it. So these are all things that I think you should consider, and they're things that I've found over the past 15, 17 years working with international companies through China, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. these are the issues that cause the most problems.
Right. So do your homework.
Do your homework and don't wait for the problems to happen. That's when I normally get called in. Try and, if you do your homework well, you won't have to call people in like that to go in and find out what's actually going on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Stuart Jay Raj, for joining me for IntelTalk at hotelintel.co.
Thank you.